Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to this issue, the DC fan site that will have plot synopsis and character bios. So, I absolutely love this series. Trying to get um there's just not much out there for this. I looked them up and I love this series. So whether other people like it or not, I guess I can't control that, but I absolutely love Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday, or Cassaday as I like to do it. This is a absolute great series, and I do like Warren Ellis, but I love John Cassaday. Love him, love him, love him, love him. My art style is very much evoked on him. This is a fun series. It's lasted about 20 some issues, and then there's a couple of specials here and there. So, all right, let's dig in. So we see here, there's not a lot of words. So Warren Ellis is from that new style of writing, or particularly in that era. He's not giving you exposition. He's not telling you where this is located. He's not telling you anything about nothing. So you open up and you see this ship in water. I do wish it was. It does look. It's colored like land, but this is water here. So we got a small ship here, and they're heading in here toward land here. Um, and so we got a dock here, and the people are getting out. And finally says here, it does us good to have our genitals frozen into small blue dead things. Um, Ward Ellis is part of the second British invasion. So guys like Mark Miller or Millar, uh, Warren Ellis, um, I don't want to say Grant Morrison per se, but Grant Morrison really started to hit the mainstream around this time, so perhaps will. And they just, it does these weird, like, nobody would say things like this dude does, but it's part of that whole, I don't know. It's part of that late. This is from 1999, so it's part of that new millennium type of comic book writing that you would see very prevalent here. So this guy goes to him and says, Ryu, and Ryu says, "Take my name from your lips, you cheeky bastard. Is respect suddenly too much of an effort for you, John? Very well, master storyteller. Why is it necessary for us to communicate here?" And so John continues, I know that in several of your novels you advocate the cold as a cleansing, and Ryu says, novels? I know no novels. Scripture, Jun. They are scripture now, he says. And so, yes, master storyteller. And you can see that he's cold and see him kind of like that. The cold and the isolation frees us. This is the most isolated place I know of. The last island between Japan and Siberian Russia, unpopulated because of its nature as a political football. The Russian claims it as spoils of the World War II. We naturally claim it. It is as part of Japan legally. This island is a nowhere thing. So they're going up the dock here into this island. And so I love how this is done in silhouette. Very cool. Um, we shall move into the interior of the island, find rude shelter, and make our plans. We need to be cleansed. We can take the Japanese government for our own only by having cold hearts and a clean hands, Jun. Guns will also help, Master Storyteller. And Ryu says, big goddamn guns. Of course, when you enter Parliament, you will also be ripped to the teats on fine cocaine. The writing is weird. We just have to kind of work our way through it. It is part of that, like I said, that whole uh, late 90s, early 2000. This is just kind of how a lot of comics were written, particularly when it's done by Warren Ellis, Mark Miller, and Grant Morrison. Hell, I've covered some Grant Morrison stuff, starting with the JLA, and it's just, um, you know, this is just the way it kind of is, and this is the style people were emulating. So the master storyteller Ryu here says, imagine it: veins fizzing, huge weapons, all warm and oiled, and hard in your hands as you declare me paramount leader of Japan. And the guy behind him, Jun, says, Ryu. And he says, I told you, damn it. And then he looks back and says, oh. So he obviously sees something that's happening, and we get a double page spread. Island is the title of our story. So the credits don't appear in the normal pages. They were appearing like when you opened the book. They were on the cover, or not on the cover itself, but on the first. Anyway, they would be there. I don't know what that's called. You know, the insert when you open the cover, it's on the cover side. But anyway, so they see this big bug here that is apparently decomposing here, which means it's probably hasn't been dead far too long. So now we assume we're in Japan. Warren Ellis is not telling us that at this moment here, but and I don't read Japanese, but I will assume that we're in Japan. It says here as our heroes are walking in, it says Planetary, and then in Japanese it says something here. I mean, I know it's Japan because I've read this. I'm just saying that it doesn't tell you it's Japan. You just kind of guess. So you see Chiquita hitting the buzzer here, and it says it's Chiquita buzzes in, as we got the drummer and Elijah. And so they're going up. Offices all over the world, says Elijah. And Chiquita says, I told you, don't assume Planetary is some pissant operation that coddles the mentally ill just because we employ the drummer. And drummer says, you'll regret being so damn abusive when the electric UFOs gods transphase in from Dimension 10 to appoint me manager of the universe. And he goes, I said that out loud, didn't I? And so the guy comes in and says, welcome to Tokyo. He's wearing a tie-dye shirt here. Again, I love her in silhouette here. So she gives him a kiss on the cheek here. This is Shinya Fukuda, chief of the Japanese Planetary Station. Shinja, this is Elijah Snow. The new guy, pleased to meet you, says Shinya. And he says, I don't feel like a new guy. You don't look like one either. So, did it just get colder here? As he kind of looks. And so, drummer says, so what's the word, Shinya? I mean, you didn't even trust it to my communications network, man. And he says, 2 words, drums, Island Zero. And Chiquita's kind of looking outside. And drummer says, those are 2 very bad words, Shinya. And he says, yeah, and I wouldn't even have said them unless you were in the room with me. And Chiquita says the drummer is a natural anti-surveillance device. He's got a safe zone of about 5 meters. And Elijah says, "What is an island zero?" And the guy, as he pops a cigarette, says, "An island." Um, Real quick, during this era, of course, Warren Ellis was writing Transmetropolitan, which is the series, the Vertigo series that put him on the map as one of the hot writers of that era. So Elijah puts his arm on his shoulder, says, "If you want me to kick you off the top of your head and leave you for Tokyo pigeons to crap in your living brain, then please make more jokes." Um, and you can tell here, so this is there, because he goes, "Since when did he speak Japanese?" So in the old days, when you spoke a different language, it put these little things in there, and that'll say translated from the Japanese. Here, it's using other forms to kind of let you know that this is. So here they just changed the font. So again, drummer says, "Since when did you speak Japanese?" And um, Elijah says, "Since 1925." And he says, "Well, I'm glad of it. This honored Elijah shows you two up for the ignorant Yankees you are. Island Zero, Mr. Snow, forms the far northwestern tip of the Japanese archipelago, also the closest island in the group to the Eurasian landmass, specifically Russia. It's off limits due to an issue of war legality still under arbitration. Basically, we think it's ours, and the Russians think it's theirs. One of our prime ministers visited Yeltsin to try and iron it out last year, but you know." And so Elijah says, "Here in Japan, you go through prime ministers the way other people go through socks." And he says, "Right, end official version." So, unofficial version, well, Chiquita can tell it better. She's been there with your predecessor. And Chiquita says, "It's probably best if you just see it, Elijah." And here you see drummer taking pictures of himself. This is still, even though cell phones were around, they weren't quite the cell phones we're used to now, and we definitely didn't have smartphones. So these, he's kind of taking a selfie without taking a selfie. So, and so he says there are 6 Japanese on Island Zero. I only got word of it 24 hours ago. Called as soon as I heard, but it's too late. They're already there. A mildly infamous Japanese novel and 5 acolytes. Japanese secret servicemen have been watching them. And so he continues here. They have that Yukio Mishima Aum Shin Raiko smell about them. Lots of talk of armed insurrection, egotism with guns, apocalypse, guerrilla warfare. Seems they're on the island to confer and commune in strictest privacy. Obviously, they don't know what's on the island with them. Obviously, they can't be allowed to find out. And so he continues, I've chartered you a boat and a chopper. Is that okay, Chiquita? And Elijah says, what's the big deal? What's on Island Zero? And drummer, as he puts a picture on from the Polaroid on his forehead, monsters. So we, in the 2 issues, we see drummer as a bit of an immature, sort of what you'd call a man-child. So all right, here we are back in the island, and all of the people here are looking at this skeleton of. And so, what is this place? What have you brought us to? And Ryo says, hell. Real quick here, you can start seeing, and he'll incorporate it even more, the dry brushing method that I just go crazy over. And so now here comes the helicopter. And Elijah is lighting up a cigarette. So this is the job: get jabbered at some half-tame lunatic, get stuffed in a chopper, go somewhere with mountains and do goddamn nothing. Exciting. I'm earning my $1 million. Yes, I am, he says. And you can see Drummer here kind of all bundled up. And he says, can we throw him out, Jaquita? And Jaquita says, I'm thinking about it, Drums. I really am. And he says, and she says, I didn't know you smoked. And he says, I have one every couple of years. Me too. How did you know? And so in Japanese, um, the guy says here, we're putting down on Island Zero shoreline. Out you go. And Elijah says, I'll tell you another time. Maybe we're landing. So, um, Drummer goes, you need a coat there, Grandpa? And he says, no, the cold doesn't bother me. So, um, Elijah asks Chiquita, so what are we doing here? Finding these people before they see anything? And she says, well, we can hope, but it's unlikely. I can see their tracks. We're walking the route they walked. Same one I walked when I first came here. So they've seen that. And he points at it and he goes, my God. What we have to do is find them before they see the rest. So this creature has obviously been here a while, even though it looks like it should, it should have completely decomposed if it's been too long time. But, and so back to them. I like it here. Please, Master Storyteller, we can't stay here. The stench alone. And he says, shut up. And we see this kind of Godzilla creature. And he says, this is holy. I just love the weirdness of it. Maybe that's what I was attracted to, because it these books, I mean, you have to read them over and over to sort of digest it. So this guy here is puking. You can see that. And he goes, it's a huge dead monster and you're standing in its lungs. It's not holy. It's a bunch of scales and rotting meat, and it's real and it's dead. And Ryo says, you show no respect. You think it's an accident that we find these things here? And you can see he's kind of going crazy here. These are our dreams, June. They lay here sleeping. They offer us welcome within their very bodies. They remind us of our greatness and horrors. And that is our business. That is what we came to plan. That is what we brought with us. Come sit, eat. Oh, no, thank you. So you can see here it's not very good. And he's like, I insist. And everyone's like, and this guy's hurling again to go throw up. So I love the faces like, you've got to be shitting me. I'm not going to eat that. So Chiquita says, I see them. Damn it. The one in the headband's got a gun, waving that thing around like it's a toy, the jerk. And he says, all I see is a green blob in the distance. We have to be a mile from it. And so June says, look, I believe in your theories. I believe in armed insurrection and revolution and nerve gas and acceptable casualties and all the rest of it. But I don't believe in this. And I don't believe we should be here. And I don't believe that we should be eating the goddamn things, Ryu. And you can see this guy still puking. But of course, we're going to get him killing him in the head. Bam. And Elijah and Chiquita go down here, and Elijah says, can't see it, but I heard it. Gunfire. And she says, and that is about the worst thing that could have happened. Keep up with me as best you can, says Chiquita. And suddenly you can see she's taking off at like super speed. And the fact that Elijah is still in the same position, it just tells you then how fast she is. So are there any more questions about tonight's dinner, says Ryu. Beautiful. And so Chiquita's running through. I like even the little details of her as she kind of goes knocking. And so he goes here. Bring me kit the kit bags. Let's get started, says Ryu. Maybe we should cook June's first, an appetizer. And he says, I ate human flesh in a sex club in Osaka in 1989, but it wasn't cooked. They said it would be bad to do that to a girlfriend. Uh, told you, weirdness. And so the guys are coming to him, but here's the military. And he says, turn around. And of course, here comes Chiquita. And Ryo says, we are simply making camp. We can't allow you to do that, sir. In fact, we can't allow you to leave either. And he says, I see. We are to be executed here in this place of dreams. You too, he says, and you can see him shoot, and gas seems to be coming out. And he basically kills himself and them. And Chiquita kind of stops here as she's running to it. And she says, she yells at Elijah, Snow, nerve gas. That bastard shot a canister of nerve gas hidden in a bag. That wind's blowing it to you. So run, for God's sakes, run, as she yells. And he says, saved us the trouble of convincing them they didn't see anything. Love to know how those guards just appeared here, though. And then Elijah disperses the nerve gas. So she walks up to him and says, when the file said you were a cold bastard, I assumed it was a metaphor. Heat subtraction, I'm impressed. You telling me your precious fourth man didn't know anything about me? And she says, oh, I'm sure he did. He just didn't tell us. Okay. I've seen. Now tell. And she says, it all started the day after Hiroshima. Nearby settlements reported a bright light and a terrible storm. The reports were dismissed, lost, or buried. We don't really know what happened here. We simply know what became of it. We can't say it was an atomic bomb. We can't say these things are radioactive mutants. I mean, that'd be stupid. Maybe someone ground tested a mutagen, or a door opened from a parallel Earth, or something extraterrestrial impacted here. But 5 years later, Island Zero was populated by great monsters. They died off by the mid-70s for some reason. They never left the island and never bred. They stood as a warning, really. I mean, no one will admit to having dropped a bomb here, or opened a door, or tracked a spacecraft impact. So, but despite the fact that we know it's the technology, that we know the technology is out there, no one else has dropped a bomb or opened a door or whatever. All they did was put a small defense and observation force on Island Zero. All the secrets of the Island Zero remain here on their base under guard. And he says, what guards? And she points at the dead men. Well, that guard. The bunch of dead people? Yeah. So she kind of smiles. Their base is this way. Come on. We can empty the place and be gone long before they send replacement troops. And he says, hey. And he's looking behind her and sees this alive monster. And she said, and he goes, I thought you said they died off. And she says, I did. Isn't that great? She asks. So that concludes the issue. I know it's a little bit weird. I don't know. I like it. It's just something different. It's not your average superhero comics. It's just, I don't know, something different, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So, Planetary number 2 from 1999 by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday, or Cassaday. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.